Welcome back to One Great Conversation. Simon Bell from Tuesday Studios joins us again to discuss what it means to hold things lightly. Simon is a producer, filmmaker, and long-time business coach to Tim Dawson, our CEO at Lauxes Grates. With Simon's diverse background, he is able to give us deep insight into ways of being and showing up in the world which celebrate our humanness, as he has seen both sides of the coin. Dominant masculine energy to achieve his goals, and then trusting the process which helped him be at peace with what is and to enjoy the journey. We can often get attached to certain ways of being or doing, or really hold on to our emotions and outcomes to our own detriment. Keep listening to learn more about the concept of holding things lightly and how it can assist in finding that sweet spot where we are not at effect of what shows up for us in our journeys. I love everything that we've discussed today with Simon, and I really hope that you get as much from it as I did. Enjoy. Awesome.
I'll answer whatever I need to.
Yes, thank you. So you were our guest speaker for the January Pump Up. You did an amazing job, as you always do. Thank you so much for how much you give to Lauxes.
Thanks for having me.
Can you talk more about holding things lightly? Speak about it like I haven't heard it before.
Okay. So in the context of goal setting or setting an intention, I'm assuming, like we talked about in the Pump Up Day?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you can go on that. Yeah.
Okay. So that's a really good question. So holding something lightly. Now, quite often when we set a goal, we'll get attached to that particular goal or outcome that we're looking to achieve. And in that attachment, it could form into an obsession, and which, by the way, is a fairly normal and natural way to approach achieving goals. It's a very masculine approach. It's something that is well established in the business space, in sports. You talk about people wanting to achieve greatness in their particular field, whether it's basketball or at the Olympics or whatever it might be, and that constant drive and focus. As we know from experience with professional athletes and even business people who drive and push and attack their goals with that hyper masculine. And when I say masculine, I don't mean male. I mean
just the energy. Yeah.
It can absolutely and tends to produce the results that they're looking for, but at the same time can have some negative consequences as well around their emotional and mental well-being. It can be depression after the fact. I know a couple of people good friends of mine who have done Ironman, and they talk about the Ironman depression or post-Ironman depression, which is when they do they've worked so hard to train and they've got focus and purpose and goals.
And then not.
And then they get to the end they complete it, and they don't know what their life is like afterwards, and therefore they lose purpose and lose. So one could argue that in the moments or in the process of achieving their goal, they've achieved what they wanted to achieve. But the question then comes, is achieving that objective or the goal as satisfying as it could be as a result of all that's been sacrificed in the journey? Now, what I posit, and definitely the paradigm which I operate from, is that you can be equally as effective in achieving your goals or your intention by holding it lightly. And that means that I'm 100% committed to achieving this outcome. In fact, I know it to be true, and this shall be. And at the same time, I'm going to enjoy the process. I'm going to go with the flow. I'm going to look for opportunities in the moment to choose to enjoy the training or the process or whatever it might be, In other words, I don't necessarily have to read my goals three times a day or 6 times a day.
Nice.
But I can still hold it enough and hold it clear in my mind that it guides my actions, but dance that fine line between commitment and obsession.
Yes, that's a really beautiful way to look at it.
Thank you. So being committed but not attached is the distinction that it stems from, is being committed to an outcome but not attached to necessarily the way in which it looks. And here's the other thing too that I find is when you're attached to so when you're that committed and focused, quite often you can be then limited by the options that you've got available to achieving that goal. So if you look at, say, professional athletes, and I'm not a professional athlete by any stretch of the imagination.
You're holding your belly of wings here. And beer? Or?
Yeah. If drinking beer and eating hot wings is a professional sport, no.
You're a leader.
That's right. But do have experience, obviously, from a business perspective and achieving goals in that realm, and have come from that highly driven, highly focused, hyper masculine business background to experience the other side where there is more flow. So I am not speaking just in theory. It's definitely a personal experience, but also the experience of dealing with hundreds of entrepreneurs and business owners that I've worked with. So it's, when you set a clear intention or an outcome or a goal, but then you're open to receiving, when I say open to receiving, you're open to looking for new ways of going about things. New opportunities will present themselves and you'll naturally achieve it. For those that play golf out there, the analogy you could use would be one of the key mistakes that people make when they first start playing golf is holding the club too tight.
Okay.
Right. And so they might go through their process, but then they'll overgrip
I'm sure I'm one of those people.
I want to whack it as hard as they can, only to realize that, that probably works 1 in 10 shots.
Sure.
In actual fact, you've got to hold the club light enough, still enough to hold onto the club.
Yeah, don't let go.
Don't let it go. But at the same time, trust and allow the process to work. Formula One, again, not a Formula One car driver, but I've been told by someone who has raced cars that holding the steering wheel is the same. Holding it too tight can, impact muscle strain and impact the process. But holding it light enough, not so you let go. But
I love those analogies.
Does that answer your question?
It does.
Holding it lightly?
Beautifully. Yeah. I feel like if we just ended the episode there, it would be enough to
perfect.
Add lots of value to our listeners.
And just remembering that this is a process, it's not just the destination that we're working towards. It's ensuring that whatever goal it is, whether it's opening a film studio here in Brisbane or on the Gold Coast or whatever it might be, losing weight, it's knowing that the process of doing that can be as enjoyable as the destination, and that you want to be open to seeing all possibilities of achieving that rather than a fixed way.
Definitely. And how does this concept support not being attached to emotions, outcomes, being a certain way, and so on? So you answered quite a bit in that first one, but talking a bit more about emotions and how you imagine things to turn out versus how they do and that sort of thing.
It's a good question too. Well, I mean, I think it's important to explore whenever it is that you're setting a goal or an outcome or an intention, to look at what is the emotional experience that you want to achieve from that. Because fundamentally everything that we have as a desired outcome is in order to experience something. And so that's a useful exercise to begin with, is, okay, well, why do I want to lose the weight? Or why do I want to hit that next sales target? Or why do I want to get that promotion at work? How will that make me feel? What's the experience I'm chasing? And understanding that means that it also then supports holding it lightly or being not attached.
Yes.
Because you're like, well, actually, you know what? And during the session, I remember asking, I forget the gentleman's name, about the basketball. I think it was
Charles.
Charles, could have been Charles? Yeah.
Charles.
And we're talking about, if, for what purpose, what do you want to experience as a result of achieving that goal? And he said whatever he said. And my follow-up question was, well, if you could feel that way of being, you could have that experience without achieving that goal, would you still want to achieve it?
Yes. Yeah.
And he said yes, which is great, right? And that indicates that you're on the right track there. But being able to distinguish the fact that, okay, well, I want X in order to experience Y. Well, what if you could experience Y without achieving X? Would you still want X? Yeah, I would. Well, no, I wouldn't. No, I'm doing it in order. Okay, well, what do you actually want? Is that goal something that you want to achieve? Now, in regards to, so that our desire to experience something emotionally is always what's going to drive our goals and our outcomes and things that we want to achieve. And at the same time, during the journey, we're going to have a constant emotional experience.
Yes.
And it's important not to invalidate whatever the emotions are that come up during that experience, whatever they are, because they serve a purpose.
They do.
Yeah. Now, that purpose is to let you know how you feel in that moment, and nothing more, nothing less. Sometimes we do a bit of a deep dive and try and analyze our emotions. And you can definitely do that if you want to, but you also don't have to, because, the idea of, or the purpose of emotions are to be felt. And there's no better emotion or worse emotion. We as human beings have this beautiful tendency to judge our emotions and relate to those judgments like they're real, as opposed to just relating to the emotion.
You've taught me a lot that they just are.
They just are.
Like, just let them be.
Yeah. I'm angry and I feel angry. Okay, cool. I feel angry right now. Now what? What do you want to do with that? And the other piece around it is that as a human being, you're constantly going to experience some form of emotion. It's either going to serve you towards your goal or it's not. And if it doesn't serve you, what can you do about that? What can you do about that? Now, emotion or emotion, energy in motion is the way I like to relate to it. Emotion, energy in motion, energy needs to flow. And so for you to be able to allow that emotion to pass through you, it needs to be expressed in a safe way. And if it doesn't get expressed and it's not allowed to flow through you, it will store somewhere within you.
Very true.
And it will express itself in some other way, whether it's pent up emotion, repressed, suppressed, depressed emotions, whether it shows up as dis-ease or ailments, it'll express itself in the body in some way, shape or form. And so I think one of the opportunities and a practice to have, and something that I've practiced regularly, is whenever I feel those strong emotions, whether it's crying, sadness, whether it's anger, whether it's frustration, whether it's joy, is to allow myself in a safe environment to be able to experience that. And I've shared with many people about, I live at Daisy Hill up in Springwood in Logan, the Yeti of Daisy Hill. And so if I'm having those sad, strong emotions, or if I'm having, be able to get out there in the bush and just let it out.
The Yeti of Daisy Hill.
Just yell and scream or cry, If you live around there, you may or may
You're
not have
famous,
heard.
right?
Hopefully nobody's heard me. Thank you. But
The Yeti of Daisy Hill. That's really catchy.
There you go.
That's really catchy.
Should get a bumper sticker.
You should.
The Yeti of Daisy Hill. So yeah, just allowing those emotions to pass through, not because you have to, but the opportunity is for you to do that. And even when we did the meditation or the breathing exercise before with the division leaders and the HODs, there's always an opportunity when you do that breathing exercise to be able to let out a sound on the outwards breath, the sound that's connected to or resonates with the emotion that you're feeling. And just in that practice alone will allow you to pass that emotional, or help you pass that emotional state. Got to feel it to heal it, as they say.
You do. You definitely do. And I was just speaking about before how I wanted to start including some of the listener questions. There was so many good ones, but I know we're on a time constraint, so I have to only pick one, and I'm going to pick this one here. So some people may worry that holding things lightly means that they will lose their motivation or sense of direction. How do you address these concerns, and what advice do you have for individuals who struggle with this mindset?
How bad do you want it? Like if you genuinely make a choice and choose that a particular goal, this shall be, then this shall be. And I think that speaks to the type of goal or outcome or objective that somebody's setting. There'll be those that are nice to haves. There'll be those that are wishful thinking. And there will be those that you just know in your heart of hearts that shall be. And to speak to that, I believe that when you set an intention that you know to be true, you know that this shall be, you won't have to hold it hard because you're not forcing anything.
I'm already identifying things that I have, like it's just going to be. I know that. Yeah.
That's right.
So I can, that's already spoken to me so much.
Yeah. So as opposed to, and I'll find that kind of question comes up when people are setting goals and there's fear involved. Like, what is this going to mean if I don't achieve it? What if I should really be achieving this kind of goal? I should be on my second investment property, or I should have, whatever by now. And if it's driven by a should, or a need to, or a must, and I mean a must like, well, of course, I just have to, or have to.
Yeah, those three words, I'm quite mindful of those.
Yeah. You can safely say that it's driven from a context of fear as opposed to a context of choice or creation.
Yes.
Because when you choose and you actually choose, you're like, no, this is what I'm doing and this is who I'm being, you'll find that a reminder will be sufficient.
Yes.
And you won't have to hold. Because as I said, holding the golf club, you're not letting it go. You're still
Some
holding
people
it.
might, like Mitty at Top Golf.
Did he really?
Yeah, there was a bit of damage at one of our team events. So I'm not sure if he let it go, but anyway, he swung a hole in the wall.
Oh, no.
I don't know if I should have said that on
We're not live.
online.
No guilt.
But it's been long enough now, surely, that we can't be held responsible.
This is statute of limitations.
Yeah,
so it's holding it firm enough to not let it go. And whatever that looks like, everyone's going to be, everyone's an individual. I still have a vision board. I still have my goals on my walls as a reminder. I still have key distinctions printed out like you guys do here to remind me of who I'm being and who I could be. So that in itself is truing me up to who I know to be in those moments from when I forget. And that's what I mean by holding it tight enough so that you remember who you are and what's important to you and not be distracted, but not tight enough where
your knuckles are white and shaking. And
that's right. And again, I'm not invalidating for the people those that do it, because it does produce results.
Yeah.
Just be mindful of the sacrifices and the impact or the cost that way of being has when you're setting out to achieve your goals that particular way, whether it's on your health, your mental well-being, your emotional well-being,
your family,
your relationships, your family. And you may in that moment decide that that's a sufficient or, you're prepared to sacrifice that. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that either. I'm just offering an alternative way of approaching it. So holding it tight enough or strong enough to not let it go and be reminded of who you actually are and what you're out to achieve, but not tight enough where it becomes an unhealthy obsession.
For sure. And I think that helps you not lose sight of what you're trying to achieve. Yeah.
Yeah. And we also, at a metaphysical level, we also forget who we are and how powerful we actually are. We forget how magical and miraculous we actually are. And if we just remembered that, the power that exists within us, you'd realize that you don't have to force a lot of the things that we create.
I realized that on my drive in this morning. Like, when you're trying to cheat like 2 or 3 minutes rather than just enjoying the drive.
Just surrender.
And I looked at the time. I'm like, I got here at the same bloody time anyway.
Yeah. And
I enjoyed it more.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And it is all purposeful too. That's the other thing is, you missing that traffic light, it was purposeful and perfect.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. I think it's the fearful ego mind that has us want to hold on to how things need to look and should look in achieving goals or doing certain things that causes us, the pain and the anguish, as opposed to going, you know what? No, you're actually miraculous. You're more powerful than you know you are. Set the intention, hold the intention lightly, hold it, but hold it lightly. I'm not saying let it go or forget about it, but just trust the process and trust that you're powerful enough to make it happen, and trust that you'll know what actions to take when you need to take them if you allow yourself to, be open to seeing them.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense whatsoever.
Absolutely does. And I always get so moved by your words. Like you could, narrate documentaries or do audiobooks and I would just, your voice just puts me in a good place. So you answered actually my last question really well, and I'm mindful of time, so I'm going to skip to this one as our last question. So any bodies of work that we should look into to further support this practice or mindset that you want everyone to have in their toolkit?
Oh, yeah. I think one of my favorite bodies of work, there's been a number that have impacted my life, but someone who really stands out for me is Corey Jackson, and he has a body of work called Cultivating Emotional Balance. So I'd love to give Corey a shout out. His work around attention training, he is an amazing human being. He's a psychologist. He's also a Buddhist, and he has that beautiful, blend of East meets West philosophy.
So your person, your type of person.
100%, 100%. And when I met him for the first time, I remember thinking, oh, you've just perfectly articulated what, in a much more sophisticated way than I ever have, how I feel and how I kind of my approach and philosophies. And so, but grounded in peer-reviewed science at the same time. So
nice.
For those that are somewhat skeptical, he talks a lot about the psychology of attention training, which is your ability to be able to train your mind to focus on one key focal point, but also then molds that in with emotional well-being, emotional understanding, emotional intelligence is what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And to be able to recognize your emotional states and then use that attention training to disrupt or get yourself back on track. It's a beautiful body of work. Cultivating Emotional Balance is something that I would definitely check out.
Thank you so much. And to end it as well, something that I've kept in mind that you taught me a little while ago, it's not about not getting messed up. It's about how quickly you can get back on track. So that's something that I think gives people the permission to feel their emotions, let things happen, but then, get back on track and focus on what it is that you want to achieve. Yeah,
100%. And remembering we're all messy human beings living this messy human being existence. I think I said on the last podcast.
You did. But you can't say it enough.
No,
I think.
Just, you're human. So you're going to have whatever emotional state comes up. Some days you're going to be empowered. Some days you're going to be disempowered. Some days you're going to be sad. Some days you're going to be angry. Some days you're going to be ecstatic.
And that's okay.
And all of it's okay.
Thanks, Simon.
You're welcome.
It's always such a pleasure to have you on here.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of One Great Conversation, brought to you by Lauxes Grates. We hope you gained some valuable insights that you can implement into your personal and professional life. Please share this episode with others who you think may be interested in this topic. If there's something you'd like covered in future episodes, drop us a line in the comment section or send us a message on social media. To stay up to date with new episodes and to help support One Great Conversation, please subscribe or follow us on your favourite streaming platform.